So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Kung Fu Panda. So let's start the series. The Fourth Great War would end with this battle. The last conflict between NRDOS and their friends. During the 2 full days of battle, either of them was able to gain the upper hand because their core energy quickly depleted. The companion of Naruto was determined to win the fight and refused to surrender. Naruto is similarly focused on winning. When their core energy was nearly depleted, they had to launch one more attack. When Naruto defeated him, he used the eye strength that suffering gave him, but it wasn't enough. He could only boost his core energy because he had no idea how to use his new sight. It was just enough for his final, most potent spirit art move. However, the friend of Naruto was not doing well. He had little core energy, only enough to use the spirit art my hypocritical sensei had taught him. While Naruto was charging his wind ball, his pal was charging his thunderball on his left hand. With the intention of killing, they both attacked one another. A ball of wind. The thunderball. When the blows hit each other, they both yelled. A massive core energy pillar was created as a result of the subsequent enormous explosion. Naruto awakens in a location he knows well. When he turned around, the 9 Beast was in front of him. "What's going on?" the perplexed woman said. "Well, Kit, it looks like we are in a tight spot." "Well, Kit, the explosion tear a hole into a mother dimension, but in the process your body will soon be torn apart." "What?" Naruto exclaimed. "Kit, the only way to save you is for me to give you all of my core energy." "But won't that kill you?" "Yes, it will, but you're not going to go to another dimension empty-handed." Naruto's eyes then began to burn. He squeezed his eyes, attempting to stop the pain. "Quade!" he cried out. The pain subsided after a short time. The enormous fox made the decision to tell Naruto what had transpired while he was still getting over the discomfort. He nodded and massaged his eyes. "Kit, do you recall when I told you that I was the one who created the red eye's power? Okay, then since Pain gave you his eye power, I increased its powers and abilities, and took away all the side effects. I also gave you all the stages of the red eye's power and even the eternal Manjikyu red eye's power. With no side effects either. I even went as far as fusing both bloodlines together." This was more than Naruto could take. Naruto has always viewed the fox as a father figure who has given him and reinforced 2 of the most potent bloodlines in the world. "Kit, that's not all," the 9 Beasts cried before Naruto could say anything more. "I am also giving you my strength, abilities, and 2,000 years of spirit art, fighting styles and techniques, sword styles and techniques, everything." When Naruto said, "Kit, one more thing," a glimmer appeared directly in front of him. When the glimmer faded, a stunning floating blade replaced it. The exact same sword as Byakuya from Bleach, so we'll not go into detail about it. "Kit, this sword is an ancient and powerful sword that none could rival. It's called Bleach Senbonzakura. Once you put some core energy, it will be able to cut through anything. This sword has 3 releases. The first is the form you see right now. The second is called Shiki. To activate the second stage you have to say, Scatter Bleach Senbonzakura. The third and final is called Bankai, Senbonzakura Kagyoshi. You say the same thing from the second stage to the third stage. Don't worry, when you get my knowledge you will automatically know how to use it, and your new eyes too." Naruto's cheeks were pouring by this point. The blonde, too depressed to respond, simply said, "Thank you, father." Ever and Zabuza have grown close since their altercation on the bridge. Like a father-son relationship. They had to keep things a secret because they didn't have many sins, but throughout the years, the fox has been teaching Naruto what he knows. His sole company was the fox. Omits the Ramen family, Shizen, Tsunade, and the first legendary Sannin. Unaware of their names. Everyone detested Naruto, and Sakura broke his heart when he was unable to win back his friend. It took a while for the 9 beasts to comfort Naruto. He was suddenly cut off from everyone. Not feeling anything. Not even when he got hurt or ill. He was heartless, but he still cared about people who were kind to him. He was now battling the Akatsuki to protect those he loved. The fox was also unhappy since he was losing a loved one. He believed it to be the sun. As the 9 beasts said before he died, "I love you, my son." Naruto screamed, "Father!" and fell on his knees when he received no response. Then something exploded inside of him. Everything he suppressed and concealed beneath his mask, pain, loneliness, and suffering, exploded. He collapsed on his knees, clinging to his head. He began to sob even more. As he finished, the blonde's face was devoid of tears. Naruto had lost his sense of touch, and his eyes had gone dead. Not suffering, not grief, not joy, not regret, not guilt. Despite the awful agony that was pulsing through his entire body, he showed no signs of caring. Naruto was unable to sense his body's fatigue. Before long, the blonde fainted from fatigue. Before long, he was in an open field, looking toward the mountains, as if he were drunk. Naruto struggled as he tried to stand. He goes on to state that his legs weren't like that. He looked like an animal on his legs. Paws, perhaps. He could only make out his hands' claws. Then he sensed a sensation behind him. When Naruto turned to see what it was, he saw 9 black tails with a white tip. Despite being surprised, Naruto maintained his composure. Shutting his eye, he combed his memory for any hint as to why he was looking and where he had gone. He finally found the solution. All of the animals in the dimension he was in were familiar with Kung Fu, and some Kung Fu masters used something akin to core energy. Its core energy is feeble. He also learned about the fate of his clothing. Naruto's appearance and attire alter as a result of being encircled by the core energy. Like the 4th headmaster, he now wore umbu armor, a white trench coat, black tight pants, and no shoes. While strolling around, Naruto noticed a tiny pool. After his journey, he crouched and examined his mirror, who resembled a humanoid fox. Has large muscles and black fur. Then he meets his eyes. Each of their 3 black rings, which held 3 tomos, was silver red. A mystery voice asked, "Are you all right, young one?" And Naruto quickly turned to see who it was, only to discover that it was an elderly sea turtle carrying a big stick that eventually formed a Y shape, wearing some sort of clothing around his shell. The turtle approached and stopped a little distance from the black fox. "Yes, I am okay. Thank you for asking." Naruto extended a hand or paw and said, "My name is Naruto. What is yours?" The black fox turned to face the turtle and got to his feet. The elder turtle scratched the back of his tongue and remarked, "Naruto, what an interesting name." The black fox shook the older turtle's paw and introduced himself as, "My name is Oogway and I am a Kung Fu master in the Valley of Peace." Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, and Oogway continued to stare at him. "Do you have doubts about me being a Kung Fu master?" Naruto shook his head, saying, "No, I don't. Being a master myself, I know that appearances can be deceiving." "AAA." Oogway smiled and answered, "Wise words for someone so young. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?" Naruto just satirized, his expression unfeeling like Itachi's. 15. Why?" replied he. To the fox's query, the turtle simply nodded and smiled. "Because when I look into your eyes, I can see wisdom, hatred, loss, hurt, and determination that someone your age shouldn't have." Naruto nodded and added, "Only if we could have a little friendly spar, Master Oogway." "That's impressive." He questioned the ancient Kung Fu teacher. "Would you mind telling me why you have these characteristics?" Master Oogway replied, "Of course I would spar with you." Naruto stood up and followed suit. Oogway made the initial offensive decision. He leaps to his feet and hurls his Kung Fu stick, going at his head. The elderly turtle backed off a few inches when Naruto easily sidestepped the strike and attempted an unsuccessful uppercut. Next came a barrage of punches and kicks from Naruto. Oogway was experiencing some difficulty blocking or dodging. During the spar, the two masters kept trading blows, and Oogway said, "He's quick. I've never seen some of the moves this young one does. This guy is incredibly skilled for an old turtle. He makes me think of the elderly man, who was strong and smart." Oogway then made the decision to employ nerve assaults. Naruto is attempting to strike Oogway. Run at him, Oogway ducked. The elderly master had ample time to start his nerve attack because of that. After striking Naruto in the stomach, Oogway struck him in the neck. The black fox dropped to the ground with a knock. Oogway walked by the unconscious fox, believing the match was over. He vanished in a cloud of smoke just as he was ready to wake the young fox. Oogway's eyes grew as large as plates of food. Sabanzakura was inches from his throat when Naruto materialized behind him before he could take any action. "I yield," Oogway said, extending his hand after laughing. "What was it?" Naruto asked, taking his sword away from Oogway's neck. "That was an intriguing tactic. The user must uniformly distribute their core energy throughout the number of clones. My clones are flawless replicas of me. It's a method that makes copies of the person using it. The technique is useful since it allows me to document any experiences my clones have, including being hit or being extinguished by smoke. It also allows me to train more quickly." Interesting. Now that our spar is over, perhaps you could explain to me why you possess some traits that someone your age shouldn't have. Master Oogway smiled and remarked, "I never knew that such a technique could be invented." Then, recalling the agreement the two masters had made, he added calmly, "AAA." After taking a big breath upon hearing that, Naruto remarked, "It all started the day I was born." "Okay, then we better sit down, because it is a long story." Nearly a year has passed since the two masters split off, with Naruto wandering the area and Master Oogway returning to the temple in the Valley of Peace. The former student instructor of Oogway, Shifu, said, "I hope your time away from the temple was enjoyable." "You're back, Master Oogway." Following Oogway to the Hall of Heroes, Shifu said, "It was my friend. What was so fascinating about the fellow?" Shifu questioned bluntly a few days before to my return, obviously uninterested in the man. With a broad smile, Oogway continued, "He's a young black fox. You must have found the fox on the ground for that reason. He must have offended someone or stolen something from them." "A fox? I haven't seen a fox in a long time." Shifu arched his eyebrows as he went on. "I discovered him pass out on the ground. I seem to remember hearing that they were crafty and extremely quick." Oogway stopped in front of the Hall of Heroes door and shook his head, saying, "No, of course lying. It was not his place to discuss Naruto's past with anyone." The old master pushed the doors open and entered, claiming, "No, he was protecting a family who were being mugged and was knocked unconscious in the end." "Does he even have the ability to fight?" Shifu asks while stroking his chin with one hand or paw behind his back. As they came to a halt in the middle of the hall, Oogway turned to Shifu and said, "He does now." The turtle grinned and asked, "What do you mean?" Shifu was confused and assumed that Oogway had taught him Kung Fu, which he found offensive. He hoped that was not the case. "I trained him," the senior instructor said with a smile. "He was exceptionally talented and absorbed all I taught him like a sponge, making him a Kung Fu natural." With a contemplative posture, Oogway began to scratch his chin while Shifu, who was obviously now intrigued, remarked, I think he is about 17 years old." "All well then. What's the name of the fox?" "He has a very interesting name," Shifu asks, placing a hand behind his back. "What is it?" "Naruto Uzumaki." None of them mentioned how dazzling the kunai Naruto gave him. Naruto sat on an Indian-style rock, closed his eyes, and listened to Shifu and Master Oogway talk. It was not surprising that they were discussing Oogway because they had been separated for a few days, and Naruto had been listening to his kunai. He made the decision to pause at that moment to see whether anything important had happened or if Oogway was doing anything. Naruto found a big boulder nearby, took a seat on it, and directed his inner might into the kunai he presented to Oogway. Naruto never stated that he could get in touch with the kunai at any moment, but he did tell the turtle that he could talk to them if he put core energy into it. Naruto didn't trust Oogway, despite the fact that he had taught him and shown him care. As the sun began to drop, the black fox made the decision to cut off his connection to Oogway's kunai and engage in meditation. He was reflecting on his past experiences and all that had transpired in his life thus far. Naruto has endured rejection, abuse, and hatred since he was 6 years old. He was not permitted to play with the other kids in the orphanage, and would be punished and kept in a room for days if he requested additional food. Naruto was expelled from the orphanage when he was 7 years old and lived on the streets for a while, searching through trash cans for sustenance. As soon as the elderly man had the headmaster fired and put to death, the council began to argue that the third headmaster could not adopt him since doing so would be seen as showing favoritism. After hearing about his ordeal, the third headmaster decided to take him in himself. Even though it wasn't the greatest apartment in the village, the elderly headmaster felt compelled to purchase one for Naruto. Then Naruto recalled all the abuse he had received from the villagers, how they had always used a new weapon and come up with a new method to beat him, and how he had been trapped like a dog and hunted about the village like a dog. A memory Naruto had made a concerted effort to forget was evoked by the black fox. The moment he was nearly killed by beatings, the breaking of his skull and limbs, the villagers' use of kunai to crucify him, and the appearance of 2 Chunin-level ninja who performed fireball spirit art on him. Fast forward. After she helped Naruto escape the locals, the two became great friends. Naruto was 8 years old and walking in the park when he made his first and only buddy. When the blonde arrived at the park, he was trying to find his friend when he noticed a girl his age wearing a black skirt, purple sandals, long red hair, and green eyes. "Hey Yumi, how are you doing?" Naruto hurried up to greet her and waved his hand. "Hello, Naruto." Yumi waved her hand and rubbed her arm anxiously, yelling, "I was afraid you wouldn't show up." Yumi hugged the blonde as Naruto got closer. "Are you kidding me? There is no way that I would just leave my best friend all alone?" Yumi asked, laughing at Naruto's gesture as the blonde threw his hands around. "Anyway, why don't we play, or do something fun?" "Okay." They played together for hours on end, laughing and enjoying themselves, but their joy was short-lived when other strangers noticed them. "Hey!" A shout from one of the peasants soon attracted the attention of many nearby residents. Surrounded by yelling, irate people, Naruto and Yumi had little chance of getting away. "Why don't you just leave us alone? What do you think you're doing here, demon?" "We didn't do anything," said one of the villagers. The blonde yelled back. "Stop talking, demon! You shouldn't even be here after all that you've done to us." Despite the fact that Naruto had done nothing wrong, Yumi had had enough of the villagers and wondered why they kept mistreating him in this manner. "What are you talking about?" Yumi yelled angrily. "He has not committed any wrongdoing." "Slow down, demon whore!" Slap! The small red head was knocked to the ground by a smack on the face from one of the locals. Naruto attempted to flee and assist his friend, but he was stopped before he could do so by a number of irate villagers. "Well," said a villager with a cunning grin, "it appears that the demon harbors affections for his whore. What if we take action?" Everyone died while Naruto saw Yumi being beaten in front of him. She was bleeding, bruised, and almost unconscious, so when one of the villagers held a knife, she was blinded. "No, please stop." Despite his cries, everyone died. Cease! The man lifted Yumi up, put the knife to her neck, and grazed her by the hair despite Nerda's valiant attempts to free himself. Nerd! To attract Nerda's attention, Yumi muttered. Goodbye, Nerda. Nerda saw time slow down, his vision became blurry, his heart ached, and he became so furious that he sprouted long claws, fangs, thicker whisker marks, and blood-red eyes with a slit in the middle because the blonde was beginning to unleash some of the Nine Beasts' core energy. As she finished speaking, did the man slide her throat? Back-end flash. When Nerdo awoke from his meditation/sleep, he immediately recognized that it was dawn. He decided to find the closest village and eat after climbing down from the rock, feeling a little peckish. Then, leaping from the rock, he made his way north. He discovered what he was smelling after a few minutes: a big lake encircled by mountains, with a restaurant in the center of the bridge and a bridge that went straight through the center of the lake. Remember the restaurant in Poe's dream at the start of the first movie? As he approached the restaurant, Nerdo heard glass breaking, objects being hurled, things being damaged, etc. The black fox identified the sobbing sounds as emanating from some very scared animals. The restaurant's owners, probably. He waited a few seconds for a sound, then walked over to the door, put his palm on it, and opened it slowly. When the ancient door creaked softly open, everyone's attention was drawn to it. Nerda noticed that there were wolves everywhere, watching him as he cautiously entered the eatery. As he continued to walk, he came upon an unoccupied table. One wolf was holding a small, shaky rabbit, who also happens to be the restaurant's owner. He and his sister approached the sitting fox slowly, paused, and then took his order. May I? Take it. What's your order? Everyone was staring at Nerdo when he warily glanced around. Then he looked back at the little bunny taking his order and lifted his head to reveal his dazzling blue eyes. Do you happen to have some ramen? The black fox asked him passively, and the rabbit briefly lost herself in his ocean blue gaze before gathering herself and following his instructions. The rabbit closed her eyes and reluctantly whispered, No. Then braced herself for any possible danger because they didn't have what the fox desired. Do you have noodles then? She opened her eyes in surprise that no harm came to her. She was expecting to get hit or something. Really. Arriving immediately. When she brought some noodles back a little while later, Nerda said, Thank you for your patience. He just said, No problem, and began eating, but one of the wolves appeared and sat directly in front of him. Nerda ignored him and kept eating. Nerda nodded and said, Thank you. He didn't get along with some of the wolves there. The owner was discussing how he could pay the wolves to keep their restaurant safe when another wolf glanced at him and remarked, I suggest you leave him alone. Before the wolf in front of the fox could say anything further, the fox grumbled and raised his head slightly, displaying his Manjikyu red eyes power and the eye power in the backdrop. Yes, and what will you do about it? The wolf said, dropped the restaurant owner, and strode over to Nerdo, slamming his fist or paw into the table. Everybody was observing the fox and the wolf. He was about to say something when Nerdo interrupted him by whispering a single word. Tsukuyami, which all the other wolves could hear. Those eyes give the wolf chills, and for a brief moment, he can see his own death. It was quiet for a moment, but he just shrugged it off because he is a cocky wolf. What? Where am I? The terrified wolf asked, looking around to discover that he was chained to a cross, much as Itachi had Kakashi in his Tsukuyami. I control reality, the fox in front of him retorted. You are in my world. Here I control time. The terrified wolf was abruptly surrounded by an army of Nerdos after Zenban Izakura left. For the next 73 hours you will experience incredible pain and agony. Here I am God. The wolf screamed in agony as the Nerdo army repeatedly pierced him. As Nerdo was being burned, the wolf in front of him began howling, and the other wolves waited for 3 seconds to see what the newcomer would do. Then he passed out, and Naruto went back to eating his noodles. As the other wolves got ready to try beating the living daylights out of the fox, one wolf said, "What did you do to him?" "Me. He just started yelling like a crazy person, and I did nothing." They all snarled at it. "Go get him!" At this point, the fox got to his feet and looked around, seeing that every wolf was approaching him. Everything appeared to be going slowly as he used his eye power and Red Eye's power, but then one of the wolves jumped at Naruto and aimed a combat hammer at his skull. Naruto deftly sidestepped the attack, uppercuted the wolf, and kicked him in the stomach, sending him flying behind him and colliding with a few of the wolves before crashing through the wall and into the ocean. Now the other knocked-out wolves were not conscious. Naruto threw his leg back and struck the wolf in the gut after it was propelled flying back and struck the wolves behind him. He tried to cut Naruto in two by grabbing the sword with both hands and paws and cutting downward, but before the blade could even get to the fox's hat, he snatched the wolf by the wrist and threw him to a throng of charging wolves, whereupon another wolf speared him. A wolf grabbed Naruto's coat and was about to attack him, but Naruto smashed the animal in the chest with his left hand and struck the wolf's wrist with his right. Naruto repeatedly deflected the fists, kicks, elbows, and claws of 3 additional wolves as they came for the fox. One of the 3 swung down, aiming for the fox's arm, but the black fox dodged the blow before his claw could reach his shoulder. The second swung a punch at Naruto's jaw, but Naruto hit him hard on the floor and then stomped his foot on his chest, making a small crater, and finally, he spun and kicked the other wolf, sending him through the wall and into the water. When Naruto noticed that there weren't many wolves standing there, the fox's eyes fell on a young wolf who appeared to be the alpha male or boss. The young wolf retorted, "Why are we doing this?" Naruto said, "He hasn't done anything wrong." Alpha was a large, well-built wolf, 6 feet tall, with a massive combat axe and some samurai armor. "He has begun a battle, and now we are going to finish it." He slams his battle axe to the ground and declares, "But he fought back since we were the ones who assaulted him first. He was just defending himself." "I am not at all interested in." The young wolf stopped the alpha male/boss by pointing around at the pandemonium that had just erupted and saying, "Look what he has done to the pack. I don't like foxes," and he kept on fighting. "He took out more than half of the pack, and he doesn't look winded or tired at all. If he wanted to, he could have killed Yus without any trouble." When Naruto said this, every wolf with a conscience listened. It was true that Naruto beat them without even scratching them. All of the wolves who had been given their asses noticed that the black fox had not yet drawn his blade. Given how vicious he was with just his bare hands and paws, the fox would be a huge threat if armed. "Hey!" The young wolf cried out and fell, clutching his eye as the alpha male/boss roared, "That ought to teach you to question me!" and sliced his left eye with his fighting axe before raising it to hit the wounded wolf on the ground. The young wolf shuts his eye as the boss hisses at axe, and all the wolves awake were appalled to learn that the alpha male/boss had hurt one of his own for voicing his thoughts, and was going to murder him. Cling! After waiting for the pain, the wounded wolf reluctantly opened his eyes, afraid to find the stranger that all the wolves were attacking, the person they all attempted to kill for no reason, blocking the war axe in front of him with his sword. "How could you harm your own pack in this way?" Naruto growled the big wolf in a tone of indifference and said, "Ha ha ha, he is replaceable, just like the rest." As Naruto pushed the enormous wolf away and placed Zenbinazakura in front of him, pointing up, he said, "You are going to die for that. Now die, scatter Zenbinazakura." The fox's sword shone pink and slowly dissolved into pink sakura petals, which whirled around the enormous wolf. Zenbinazakura collapsed back into a sword and was sheathed back, engulfing the wolf in a cocoon of pink sakura blossoms. There was a yell of agony as the petals dispersed after a few seconds, leaving behind only a few fragments of armor on a huge blood stain on the floor. Naruto heard a whimper and turned down to see the wolf that had been guarding him still on the ground, his hands and paws gripping his left eye. Naruto dropped down on his knees to assess the cut's potential for death. As his hand/paw began to glow light green, he placed it over the wounded wolf's left eye and added, "Don't worry, I can heal that for you in a matter of seconds. I am okay, but the wound is very painful," he told the wolf. He couldn't completely mend the wound, but it healed in a couple of seconds. "I apologize. It's all right. I was unable to completely treat your wound. Thank you for your assistance," Naruto murmured, assisting the wolf to stand. When Naruto heard a voice behind him say, "Thank you for helping us, stranger," he turned to see the restaurant owner, the young wolf, and the small rabbit approaching him. "How can we repay you?" he inquired. The proprietor of the eatery retorted, "It was nothing." Naruto remarked, "I'd better get going," and began to make his way out the door after the little rabbit apologized for what had occurred to your eye. "I apologize for my pack's actions," he adding, "It's okay." The fox was about to grab the door handle when someone yelled, "Hold on!" Naruto turned to see the young wolf along with the rest of the pack on both of their knees bowing down. What's going on?" After glancing around his pack and turning to Naruto, the young wolf made the decision to speak for the group. "I speak in behalf of the pack," he continued. "We ask if you would teach how to fight. Also, since you defeated the head wolf, that makes you the new pack leader." "Really? Okay. Look, even now I defeated your boss. I don't want to be your boss just because I beat him." When Naruto was separated, "It's not just because you beat our pack leader, but also because you helped me when I needed. A stranger whose pack was trying to kill you. You didn't have to help me, and yet you did. You didn't know if I would attack you as soon as you healed me. You also fought with honor, but our leader has no honor. He thought that he was the strongest. He would hurt anyone and everyone. That's why we ask you to be our new leader. You have honor, respect, skills, and trustworthy." There was a thunderous cheer when the speaker said, "Well, I will be your new boss and I will teach you to fight. But before I teach you how to fight, what will you do when I do?" Everyone raised their paws or fists in the air as a wolf rose and declared, "We will protect our pack, our honor." "All right, I'll be your new ruler and leader going forward." Naruto decided to take charge of them, and he used wood-style need spirit art to heal them and fix everything the wolves had destroyed during the month-long battle. Even though he taught them kung fu and ninja techniques, Naruto has taught them taijutsu, how to handle weapons, and how to blend in with the environment instead of teaching them any need spirit art. Naruto recalled where he and Oogway exercised after locating a large, open, or hidden area where all the wolves could train. Soon after, the pack led by the black fox set out for the mountains. As Naruto described their plan for reaching the mountains, everyone felt compelled to sit around him. Fast forward. This will be our new home and training site. Naruto stood with all the wolves seated around him and used core energy to increase the loudness of his voice. "Okay," he stated, pausing to check if anybody had any questions. "We are going to an area up in the mountains where my master and I trained. I won't describe them in detail because they are the wolves from Kung Fu Panda 2, but one of them sprung up and yelled, 'Master! What kind of training would we be doing?' Everyone's focus went back to Naruto. They all shook their heads as Naruto asked, 'Can someone please explain what a ninja is?' They said that ninjas are fighters of the shadows. They both preserve and take life. Ninjas are common where I'm from. They do routine tasks including escorting and protecting. Then comes assassination, and so on. Ninjas harness their fundamental power." Before Naruto could continue, a wolf interrupted him and inquired, "What is core energy?" Core energy is the energy source that ninjas employ. Core energy can improve strength, speed, sight, scent, and other abilities. The first is the physical energy, or chi as some refer to it. Naruto pauses to consider the phrase. The body has two energy sources. Spiritual energy, or the strength of the soul, is the second component. The combination of the two produces core energy. You will learn how to be a ninja from me. All of the wolves howled. But, Naruto stepped in. You can't teach anyone outside of the pack anything unless you ask me first, or you are 100% sure that you can trust him, or her. You must understand that what I am going to teach you isn't to be used for evil. Not even the most skilled of masters would be able to do what I am going to teach you. I will teach you the arts, but I must first deem you worthy of learning the most advanced arts. It's nothing personal. Master, is this kind of precaution required? Yes, given that one man nearly controlled my own world. After a short silence, Naruto continued, saying that some people would even claim that he was God. I mean no disrespect to any of you, but if I find any of you or your students using my teachings for your own or their own selfish purpose. After releasing a tremendous quantity of deadly intent and revealing his eternal Manjikyo Red Eyes power /Ringan, which I shall henceforth call to as the Emissar, Naruto added, I will not hesitate to kill you or your students, understand? In order to avoid upsetting their master, the wolves nodded in agreement. The black fox turned off his emissar and abandoned the homicidal intent in response to the words. Good. Naruto sprang over the wolves, signaling to them to follow with his arm, as they were now in front of them rather than in the center. Let's go. Back-end flash. All of the wolves were amazed when they arrived at the cave by their master's usage of wood-style ninjutsu to build a temple that resembled the Jade Temple. Are you capable of something that amazing? Are we going to learn how to do that? Speak with a wolf. That my students are called Need Spirit Art. It's a spell that ninjas use. To study the way of the ninja you must master Tai Justice, martial arts, Gen Spirit Art, illusions, and Need Spirit Art spells. Only those that I judge worthy will learn Need Spirit Art. Everyone was praying that the fox would answer yes. However, I'll teach you all Gen Spirit Art and Tai Chi. Naruto instructed them to visit the shrine after informing them that their training would begin the next day. Although Naruto's impersonal style took some getting used to, the pack enjoyed having him as their master. Despite his emotionlessness, the fox showed concern for his students by paying attention to what they had to say, making sure they understood their training, tending to their wounds, and occasionally even cooking for them. The fox decided to teach some of the wolves medical ninjutsu before determining which of them could perform medical spirit art. He waited until the core energy was available to all the wolves. There seemed to be a number of them. Naruto taught them everything the medical spirit art he knew, and he explained that they were only used to save lives and to take them if necessary. Following that, he instructed the remaining members of the pack on how to fight, utilize various weapons, blend in with the shadows, properly use core energy, think on their toes, if they have any, employ plans, and battle using other senses. He was hovering a few inches above a massive boulder in a meditative state near the lake where he studied with Oogway, with an Amaterasu outline all over him. Think of Naruto as a thin line of black fire. He drifted back down, rose, and proceeded to the training field to conduct training on his pack. The black fox said, You have done enough training for today. For the rest of the day I want you to rest. Naruto lifted his voice, using core energy, and said, Everyone. When everything was clear, Naruto moved to the middle of the training field and silently locked it. As others went back to their quarters, the fox watched his pack leave the training and head for the kitchen and spa Naruto had built a few days before. Black radiance with a red outline began to flow from his palm as the black fox twisted his paw. He held his left hand gently, paw out and facing the ground, eyes closed and lungs full. Recalling what Kakashi had taught him about the Thunder Ball, he closed his eyes and recalled that it was a copy of the Wind Ball and that it was the limit of his capacity to alter it. He could not improve it if he so chose. Naruto kept looking straight ahead, but he wasn't even paying attention to what he was doing. The lights began to spin like the wind ball after a few seconds, and Naruto was holding an electric wind ball. While the fox studied the spirit art as he held it in front of him, Naruto looked about before slamming the wind ball into a nearby tree. The impact of the spirit art was so powerful that it created a small crater around Naruto and the tree, even as the Rasengan tore and burned the tree until it was straight through. Naruto turned and left the crater after taking a hesitant stride in the direction of the tree. He envisioned a spirit art from the memories of the 9 beasts, a weakened version of the 9-tailed terrifying ball. Similar to a standard energy blast, spirit art is an attack style that involves directing a powerful burst of concentrated core energy towards the target, often requiring a specific posture from the user. The assault's power, force, speed, and blast area are determined by the user's strength, core energy, and occasionally skill, i.e., the stronger the user, the stronger the attack. Zero's charging and shooting times also vary greatly. They might be instantaneously fired with little charging, or they can be relatively quick to charge and fire. A small red ball of core energy began to develop on the tip of Naruto's finger or claw as he aimed it toward a tree. The black fox looked from the ball of energy to the tree as he fired it, and it appeared to be a red core energy laser. However, the moment the ball touched the tree, it burst. All that remained of the tree was ash. He used his claws and shadow clone spirit art to create a T-shaped sign, which Naruto commented was very impressive. A Naruto clone emerged from a puff of smoke. No one noticed that Naruto was training with a clone. There was only a brief glimpse of them before they vanished once more, having suddenly moved into combat positions. If you watched Bleach, you'll remember when Ikiki used his Bankai to confront that lava Aaronkar with the giant arms for the first time. Because of the seal he put on the field, Naruto was able to battle his clone for hours without disturbing the pack during their downtime. While the clone was activating Susanoo, the clone had the emissar active. Naruto and the clone separated, giving each other space. The only one that differs greatly from the Uchiha's is Naruto's Susanoo, which resembles the upper portion of a red skeleton, 9 creatures, clothed in a dark red fire-like aura, and has 9 skeleton tails swishing back and forth behind him. The Zero struck with a tremendous explosion, but the 9 beast/Susanoo was unharmed. After Naruto launched the Zero, the clone constructed a shield in front of him using his Susanoo/9 beast tails. When Naruto saw this, he focused his inner energy on his hands and claws, clapping them at the flames to send a huge, Hulk-like surge of air at it, splitting it in two. The clone forced the 9 beast/Susanoo to take a deep breath before launching a huge ball of fire in Naruto's direction. Then, prepared to strike Naruto with its claws, the clone charged the fox with his 9 beast/Susanoo. Naruto ran sideways, almost avoiding the claw swipe, and slapped his hands together in prayer when he saw a gap. He spread the green light that began to emanate from his hands and claws into a light green lance that looked like a flaming green arrow. Naruto pulled the Sonito from the middle of the lance and whacked the back of the 9 beast/Susanoo's forearm, knocking it aside. I'll give you a hint, the guy who fires a green Zero and utilizes the lance is also my fave. The black fox immediately saw that the 9 beast/Susanoo was harmed by his core energy lance. In an attempt to predict the original Naruto's next action, the clone glanced back at him and noticed a little dent in his fire-like bone arm. Even though it wasn't immediately apparent, being able to dent Susanoo is still something to be proud of. His only choice is close combat, but if I keep using Susanoo, I will run out of core energy and disperse myself. He can't throw it because it will destroy the entire temple. Immediately after deactivating Susanoo, the clone Naruto grabbed Zenbonzakura and positioned Zenbonzakuka in front of him, pointing up. The fake Naruto swiftly unwrapped his Zanpakuto and waited for the real Naruto to do something. Before the pink Sakura petals could reach Naruto, the real black fox swung his spear, causing a strong wind blast that effectively stopped the attack. The fake black fox, blazing pink, muttered, "Scatter Zenbonzakura." With the clone in a samurai striking pose and Naruto in a battle-ready stance, the two were gazing down at one another. Before the clone could do anything, Naruto kicked him in the chest, causing him to stumble. The clone leaped and swung his Zanpakuto downward, intending to split Naruto in two. Naruto used the center of his core energy lance to parry the hit after grabbing it by both sides. Fake Naruto exploited the circumstance by running to the clone and striking him across the chest before vanishing in a cloud of smoke because he didn't have time to react. Despite his body aches and perspiration, Naruto got along well with his clone. When his lance vanished into thin air, the black fox began to make his sluggish way toward his room. On his way to his room, Naruto noticed a wolf strolling by. He called the wolves and instructed him to tell everyone to meet me at the training field tomorrow. The fox answered with a bow. Yes, master. When Naruto pointed to his pack sitting Indian style on the training field, he said, Listen. I have called you here to ask you for your assistance. He stated the following day. I have 5 master students who have shown a lot of promise. I would like to see that for myself. I want you to take on tomorrow's Peaceful Valley. Make sure the residents are safe. Give the impression that you are raiding the village, but in reality, I want you to assess my master students' abilities. As a group, his flock said, Yes, master. As Monkey was doing all these flips and turns in the air while navigating those tiny hoops with the sharp spikes at the edge, Master Shifu, with his paws behind his back, watched his students in the temple. He saw some mistakes the tigress made when fighting those movable proactive dummies and knew that he needed more speed. Monkey needs more strength, Shifu thought. Knowing that his students still had a lot of work to do, Shifu kept a careful eye on them and considered ways to improve their training, such as requesting Master Oogway to employ his enigmatic fox buddy. It wasn't his place to discuss Naruto's past, but Oogway did tell Shifu about their training and the abilities the fox possesses. On the night that Master Oogway returned from his trip, Oogway told Shifu about Naruto, but he left out some details, such as the fact that Naruto was the new demon king or that he essentially had the power of a god. When he observes how Master Oogway portrays the young black fox, he wishes he could forget about his former pupil, who strangely comes to mind. Master, are you okay? Shifu said, startled out of his thoughts and turning to his students. He muttered, What is it? Yes. The Viper responds, I was just considering what. Shifu reassured his students. Crane inquired, Oh. It makes no difference. Simply. A goose rushed through the training room door and yelled that bandits were attacking the Valley of Peace, interrupting Shifu with a scared countenance. The 5 enraged students immediately fled the village when Shifu yelled at them to go defend the peasants and defeat the bandits without hesitation. When they reached the edge of the temple, where they could see that the hamlet had been seized by bandits, the angry 5 leaped high into the air, nodding to one another before splitting up. The tigress landed smoothly on a roof and swiftly projected herself forward, gaining speed. Because wolves always travel in packs, the monkey thought the other bandits were also wolves, but he ignored this and attacked the bandit who appeared to be pursuing the villagers after he grabbed one of the protruding poles from the side of a building with his tail and landed on top of one of the bandits. Before Crane could process anything, one of the bandits sprung into battle and punched him hard across the face, sending him flying and crashing against a building. A bandit was being forced to repeatedly strike himself by Viper, who was clutching his neck and forearm. Mantis was zigzagging and slapping criminals one by one while moving so quickly that he appeared to be a little green blur. I am aware that none of our skills are usable, but they are going all out despite the fact that we are holding pack and they could barely use it. Yes, the bandit said to the other. The boss did say that we should only use our skills when necessary, and he wanted us to test the Furious 5. 2 wolf bandits, who thought the 5 were good fighters, were keeping an eye on them, but they still had a long way to go. When Tigress realized she was cornered, she immediately launched an attack on the nearest bandit. They were instructed to hold back until absolutely necessary, but she could have easily ducked the bandit's fist or paw, and her strike sent the robber flying a few feet before falling hard on the floor. She quickly kicked one thief in the side of the face before catching another and throwing it to the other robbers. She continued to attack, preventing them from retaliating with quick, powerful kicks and punches. After being struck from behind, Tigress fell hard to the ground and got back up a few seconds later. When Tigress noticed that the other 5 were struggling, she noticed a wolf bandit behind her preparing to slit Viper with his blade. "No!" she yelled. She took off as quickly as she could in Viper's direction. When the bandits saw this, they swung their swords. Viper turned to face her after hearing Tigress yell. "No, I observed that she was in a hurry." Viper instantly spun around, thinking that Tigress was between her and the robber, holding the blade with her claws, which is why he stopped moving as the wolf swung his sword down and halted before it could reach him. A cry reverberated across the valley, and the wolf, unsurprised, grinned and slowly withdrew his blade, still blocked by Tigress's claws. Before putting his weapon down, the wolf bandit began to back away gradually. When he had gone far enough, he turned and fled. They glance around in confusion, but all they see are a bunch of black blurs leaving the valley and all the wolf bandits fleeing, reminiscent of the wolves escaping towards the castle in the movie Underworld: Rise of the Likes or Werewolves. "AAA, what happened just now?" asked a confused Crane, who was now with Viper and Tigress. Tigress turned to look at Crane and said, "What has happened to you?" "Oh, I was knocked unconscious after taking a punch to the face and hitting a building. I heard a roar when I woke up." As she listened to her friend's concerns, she remarked, "Let's go report this to Master Shifu and Master Oogway." They went back to the temple after the battle and assembled in the room with the statue and dragon scroll. Tigress, Viper, Monkey, Mantis, and Crane were in front of Shifu and Master Oogway, who was clutching his chin with his paw as Oogway gazed at the pond beneath the statue of the dragon. Mantis added, "It seemed like they weren't trying." Viper responded that, "When they fought us, they weren't trying to kill us." Ancient Sea Turtles asked, "Interesting. Anything else?" "Their combat style. There was some peculiar about their fighting technique." "Oh, and what was so strange about their fighting style?" Tigress asked after giving it some thought before answering. "Yes." The entire event was witnessed by a shadow figure on a hilltop close to the valley, who grinned evilly and remarked, "Very impressive, they would do nicely. I'm going to grab one now so I can talk to them." The figure continued. The black fox opened his eyes and searched his pouch for it as Naruto sat Indian style, floating a few feet in the center of the training area. Before Naruto could speak, a voice spoke from the knife. "Master." "Yes." "We have finished testing your Mater's student." "And what are your thoughts?" the Master Fox inquired. "We had to suppress a lot of our knowledge and power, even though your teacher had taught them properly. However, your training of us has been better. They still have a long way to go, but they have the potential to become excellent warriors. Master, it looks like someone is following us. See what the stranger desires." "Listen to the stranger." The Naruto was considering his options in light of the attacker's impact on his pack. "My guess is that he wants to hire you as his henchman or something." "Say yes if he tries to hire you, but don't brag about your amazing abilities." The woman answered, "Yes, master." Dropping the kunai, Naruto spread his legs, stumbled back, and began to return toward the temple, where he might be able to spend some time alone. They all understood what their master wanted them to do when the moment was right, and they knew they were being followed, and the wolf Naruto had placed in charge of the pack was escorting them home when he raised his paw to tell the other wolves to stop walking. "You can come out now," he murmured, and the others followed suit. A few of them growled, but the one-eyed wolf simply continued to stare straight ahead. "I am aware that you are present," he said. The person, a white peacock with red arrow-like designs on his feathers and white Chinese robes, emerged from behind a tree a few yards away from the one-eyed wolf and said, "Hello? My name is Shin." The one-eyed wolf was evaluating the peacock to determine whether a fight was likely to break out, and it was evident that the bird had multiple swords concealed in his plumage. "I have to admit that I was pleased by your performance against the Furies 5. Would you mind telling me why you didn't complete them when you had the opportunity?" She uttered those words. "We just wanted to see how well our masters taught us," the one-eyed wolf murmured, turning to face Shin. "Now really, your boss. Could you give me his location? Our master has been dead for some time now." "Well, assuming it's accurate, why don't you come to work with me? I would be extremely grateful for any assistance in realizing one of my aspirations. What are your thoughts?" The one-eyed wolf nodded and shook the peacock's wing, grinning menacingly. "Great. Your lord would be pleased. You have no idea,"